It is now time for the full review of my latest Rolex purchase. This is kind of an oddball within the Rolex collection, so maybe it's a watch you don't like. I find a lot of qualities with this watch and I want to tell you during this video why it's a very interesting option in the Rolex collection. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do hit the subscribe button. It is a big help. Also give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. It is a big help. Thank you so much. So of course this watch comes in the typical green Rolex plastic box with the Rolex crown here. And let's just open, and inside we find the watch. And this watch is of course the Rolex Air-King. This is the 126900. This is the new version of the Air-King which Rolex introduced in 2022. My particular example here is from this year, 2023. So in this video I'm going to get into all the different details, the performance of this watch, and also compare it to some of the other Rolex watches just to give you an idea of how this watch is and how it's placed compared to other similar Rolex watches in the collection. And of course the green Rolex name. So 2 links removed, the hang tag. Inside of this compartment here we do find the guarantee worldwide service, and we also find the warranty card here, and of course the manual. So all of that is not very interesting. Let's have a closer look at the watch. I am wearing my Rolex Datejust 41, and that's no coincidence because I want to just do a very short comparison with the Air-King later in this video. So here we have the Air-King, the 126900 up and close. This Air-King replaced the Air-King 116900 in 2022. The previous Air-King was produced between 2016 and 2022. And before we get into all the different details, the accuracy, the lume and everything about this watch, so why not just have a quick look at the Air-King's history within the Rolex lineup, because it is a very classic watch in the Rolex collection. So we have to go all the way back to 1945, and that was the first iteration of the Air-King, which was introduced back in those days, the last year of World War II. Actually, back then, Rolex, they called the watches Air Lion, Air Giant and Air Tiger. These watches were actually used in the Battle of Britain by the Royal British Air Force in the battle against the German Nazis. So back then these watches were very small, but they were the first versions of what later became the Air-King. So just fast forwarding 8 years, 1953, and Rolex, they introduced the caliber 1030 and what was to become kind of the very first Air-King reference in the collection. 5 years later, the caliber 5500 was actually introduced, and this is probably the most legendary Air-King reference number in the Rolex history, because this Air-King was actually produced for no less than 37 years. In different colorways, different layouts, kind of more of an Oyster Perpetual style of watch and not that much of a pilot watch, but still they called it the Air-King. These were of course smaller watches between maybe 34 and 36 millimeters, not the typical bigger Rolex sports watches and pilot watches we know today. So 37 years later, 1989, Rolex, they introduced the 3, 6 and 9 on the dial, and this was even a step closer towards what we see today with the 2022 Air-King. 2016, the 116900 Bloodhound was introduced, and then again in 2022 the 116900 was discontinued, and this one I have in this video now, the 126900 was introduced. So just covering the Bloodhound watch very shortly. So Bloodhound was a project which was supposed to actually make a supersonic car. Rolex, they got into this project because they produced some of the interior, the timekeeping of the Bloodhound car, but the Bloodhound project was never really finalized. Some rumors say that it's still alive, but it wasn't finalized and closed a few years back. Still, Rolex, they kind of matched the Air-King, the 116900, with the look, the design of the Bloodhound project car, and that's very interesting because it was a quite weird watch, the 116900, because it was actually a watch that was produced with the Milgauss case, with a brushed bracelet and not a brushed and polished bracelet like with the Milgauss, and then kind of the leftovers from the Explorer with the 3, 6 and 9 in white gold, which wasn't loomed. Some people kind of made fun of this watch because they said it was made of the spare parts that was left over from producing the Milgauss and the Rolex Explorer. And the 116900 was only in production for approximately 6 years, so that's a very short run within Rolex sports watches. And now here in the picture we have the newer edition, my personal watch here. It is priced at around $8,000 and it is a typical Rolex sports watch in the modern sense of Rolex sports watches. It is 41 millimeters in diameter. It is 47 millimeters lock tip to lock tip, but it does have male end links. So actually including the male end links here, we get a lock to lock of 51.2 millimeters, 11.9 millimeters thick, including this flat kind of raised sapphire crystal, and then with a 20 millimeter lock width here, tapering down to 16 millimeters. You see the bracelet is completely brushed. Really nice for a sports watch because you are supposed to actually wear this watch doing some serious activities. And of course you will be much more scratch prone with the bracelet and the clasp. Also the clasp, it is brushed. It has this fold over with the Rolex crown, and then you open. You can also open this clasp in another way. That's for professionals. You just pull down here and it opens. Of course everything is top quality. It is a Rolex clasp and a Rolex bracelet. Polished on the sides, and they are screws, so very easy to adjust. As you saw before, I did remove 2 links. It is a nice thick screw down crown, which is signed with the Rolex crown here. Approximately 6.5 millimeters thick with crown guards. That's something new compared to the previous edition or reference. Really nice pop, very easy to pull out, and then you can just set the time. Inside of the watch beats the newer Rolex caliber, in-house caliber 3230. This is a high beat movement with 28,800 radians per hour. It's a superlative chronometer, meaning that it's not supposed to deviate more than plus or minus 2 seconds per day. It has 70 hours of power reserve. Let's just have a look at the accuracy. And I'm super happy with the accuracy of this particular watch, my Rolex Air-King here, because I get close to 0 seconds deviance per day. That's absolutely amazing. Some of the best in the business, these Rolex movements. So getting back to the watch, having a closer look at this 100 meter water resistant watch, you see the difference in the dial compared to a lot of other Rolex watches is that you actually focus on the minute markings 0, 5, 10, then at every quarter hour, 3, 6 and 9, and of course 12, you have lume filled different hour markings, so 3, 6, 9 and then a triangle at 12. This is also a difference compared to the previous versions, which was white gold. Now these hour markings here, 3, 6 and 9, they are filled with Chromalite, the proprietary Rolex in-house lume. You also see the typical Rolex sword style minute hand and the Mercedes hour hand, and then this really cool green second hand with the lume dot here. Also a very cool detail, and one of the only Rolex watches in the current collection which has this is the yellow crown below 12 o'clock and the green Rolex name, Oyster Perpetual Air-King Superlative Chronometer, official certified and Swiss made with the crown down here. Beautifully made, really nice and colorful Rolex watch with the Rolex green and the yellow, the original Rolex colors. So that's a really cool way to actually get some Rolex history into the watch. You also see the rehort here with the Rolex. So the lume is a disappointment in my opinion, but it's still a plus, a step forward compared to the previous version. So you see the lume here, really nice strong chromalite at 12 o'clock, the triangle 3, 6 and 9, and of course the minute and the hour hand and the second hand. Strong lume, but still it's kind of weird, and I must put this down to being kind of a design idea for a Rolex, with only looming the hands and the quarter hour markings, because this is a sports watch, this is a pilot's watch, why not just loom everything? But compared to the previous version, as you can see on the screen now, you actually get lume at 3, 6 and 9. The previous version didn't have lume because the 3, 6 and 9, they were white gold. So of course 904 stainless steel from Rolex, their own alloy. Polished sides, polished bezel. The bezel kind of reminds me a little of the bezel on the Datejust here. The Datejust is just thicker, but still the same design. The case is very flat. This is also why this watch sits very flat on the wrist. You don't have these downwards curving locks. You see, it's a typical sterile Rolex case back. So let's just have the Air-King and the Datejust side by side just to show you some of the differences and also similarities between two modern day kind of entry level or easier to get a hold of Rolex watches. So a big difference is of course the case design. You see the more soft case design of the Datejust with these very soft, beautiful angles and the downwards sloping locks compared to the more kind of straightforward case of the Air-King. This is also why the Air-King, it feels a little flatter and a little bigger on the wrist. Both of these watches are 41 millimeters. I will say that the Datejust, it does wear a little bit smaller, and that's maybe because it just looks like you have a little more dial on the Air-King, and also because even though you have male end links on both watches, you do have these downward sloping locks here. You also see the difference in crowns here, the much bigger crown on the sports watch here. And of course a huge difference is that this is a watch with a date. The Air-King is a no date watch, very simple watch in the Rolex collection, and also of course a huge difference in clasps. This is just a put your nail under, open the clasp, and of course it is polished. And you have to open this part. Of course you can do it the professional way as I showed you before. So very different clasps, although you can see it's kind of the same design language. And of course also a difference is that you have polished center links on the Datejust and not on the Air-King. So another watch I really want to compare the Air-King to within the current collection of Rolex watches is the new or old remake of the Explorer 40, because you have a very simple dial layout with both of these watches, and also because they're kind of the same language, the kind of simple time only Rolex watches, and they are also similar in size. So with the Explorer 40 you get 40 millimeters and not 41 millimeters as you do with the Air-King. Then you get 50.9 millimeters from end link to end link. That's just a little bit smaller than this watch actually, but just a tad smaller, only 3 millimeters smaller. Then you get 11.6 millimeters in thickness with the Explorer, and you get 11.9 with the Air-King here. And then you get a lug width of 20 on the Air-King here, and a lug width of 21 on the Explorer. One of the interesting things is actually that they do use the same movement, the 32-30 movement in both of these watches. So I think that's the biggest comparison in the current Rolex collection. And it's also up to you if you want a more funky, a more different kind of Rolex watch with a lot of cool Rolex coloring with the green and yellow, or you want the more classic everyday style of the Explorer. All in all, I'm really happy with my purchase. I think this is kind of an oddball within the Rolex collection. It's kind of the weird Rolex watch, but it's also a very cool entry into Rolex sports watches, and it should be a watch that you probably will be able to get at the AD. You of course have to wait a year, 2, 3 or 4 maybe. All in all, I'm really happy to own the Air-King in my collection. It's very different, it's very fun, and it's just a grab and go watch with 70 hours of power. So if you just need to set the time only, don't worry about the date. 100 meters of water resistance. It's also a tough sports watch with the brushed bracelet and the brushed clasp. Don't worry too much about scratching this watch. So all in all, I think it's a really fun, colorful Rolex watch. So in my personal Rolex collection, it also really fits in well. I have a GMT Master Pepsi from 1991, the 16700. Then I have a Submariner, a two-tone Submariner, the 16613 from 2004. And of course, then the Datejust 41 you just saw, the 126300 in 41 millimeters. Just like this one. I can definitely recommend this watch. It's not perfect. I still think it's very weird they didn't lume all the minute markings here. Such a weird choice from Rolex. They should have gone all the way just to give you the extra value and the cool look of actually having a fully loomed watch here. But still, I get a lot of enjoyment out of this watch. It's super accurate, it's top quality, it's just what you expect from a modern day Rolex. It does wear big, so if you have a smaller wrist, I definitely recommend that you try on this watch. So I hope you enjoyed the full review of the Air-King 126900. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, share it on the forums and Facebook and places like that. And also, of course, don't forget to subscribe. It is a huge help and it will keep me occupied with this channel making more videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.